Hey everyone, it is Nick and Ron with another edition of Ask Ron. How you doing today, Ron?
I'm good, man. Ready to go. We're in the middle of a boot camp here and taking time off to answer your questions.
All right. Our first question is from our most popular question asker, Marianne Nunez
Hey,
from
Marianne.
California. I've consolidated her question some here. She says, "Hi Ron, Marianne from California. I spoke with the seller today. She lowered her asking price from 1.4 to 1.3. It's a 2.2, 1518 square feet in a very nice, expensive area and no repairs needed. No HOA. She's owned the house for 30 years and only owes $250 on it. She has rented it for 29 years. The top two comps are 1.304 and 1.725. She doesn't say how big those comps are. She pays about $23.87 a month, and that is PITI.
That's cheap.
She said the rent is around $4,000 in that area. Zillow shows $6,000.
All right.
Said celebrities have lived there and it rents quickly. She is willing to give me 7 years with seller financing
All right.
and wants some monthly payment and some money down. But she did not give me an answer to those two questions because she wants to talk to her CPA first to see what her best path would be regarding tax consequences.
Well, until she gives you that answer, there's nothing to ask her CPA because he's going to say, I need more numbers. And her CPA is going to tell her that it's her residence. She's not going to get taxed on it. Well, she might because of the price. But if she does, it's going to be very little. And even then, if she does, if she sells it to you on installment sales, it's going to be taxed over a period of whatever years.
She's currently renting it out. So it's
Oh,
not
well,
her
it's already a
residence.
rental property.
Yeah.
Well, then she'll get taxed on the gain on it. But if she sells it with installment sales, that'll be spread out over a lot of years. So that's what her accountant's going to tell her.
All right. So she has a couple of questions on it. She says,
Uh-huh.
the seller asked her if there was a way that when the buyer cashes out, if she can send her portions of her equity every year so she does not get hit with about $1 million of equity all at once.
$1 million worth of recapture is what she's talking about. Again, selling it on installment sales is the way to spread out her taxes. The amount of taxes are not going to change, but they can be paid up front next year, or they can be paid over a period of years. And of course, if it matters to her, you can also close on it in January, so that means the taxes aren't even due till the following year. You close on it this month, they're going to be due next year. But you probably need to have a more serious discussion about her down payment, because I'm assuming she's got money to pay the taxes when they occur. But if she doesn't, that's going to affect how much she wants down. Now, Marianne, another way, you could just lease option the house from her, and you'll get the same amount of money out of it. She'll have no tax consequences whatsoever. So you might want to discuss that with her. It's a lot easier on you. No down payment. You're going to make her monthly payment for her that she's got outgoing. And if you have to make a little more, okay, but that's probably the easiest way to handle that because of all the complications in her concern about tax issues. But she does need to get an opinion from her CPA on what her taxes will be, and only her CPA would know the answer to that question. If it's a rental property, she has been depreciating it. Or maybe she's only been renting it for 2 years. I don't know. If that's the case, she doesn't have that much depreciation to recapture. If she's been renting it less than 2 years, she won't get taxed because it'll be considered her residence. A lot of questions.
All right. Marianne's second question is, what would you suggest would be the most I would put down and the monthly to her?
I'd like to see the payment be the same that she's paying. She might want more, but remember, if you don't think you can rent it out for more than $5,000, it better be $4,000. It better be substantially less than that. The most you can put down, I would never give you a number because it's always going to be, we usually buy with nothing down. How close to nothing can you get? Really? Is that the best you can do? Get it down as low as you can. If she's going to require a great big giant down payment, the deal is dead anyway. So more reason to lease option it, honestly.
All right.
You know what? If you lease option it, she probably will want a month's rent for a deposit. That's great. Happy to give her that.
What would you suggest I put it on the market for?
You shouldn't know better than ask me that question. Do your homework, get it appraised, and find out what it's really worth. I can't tell you that.
Yeah, she gave those comps, but again, we don't know
She
how
gave
big
me-
they are.
I don't believe your comps.
Right.
Okay. I said get it appraised, Mary Ann, and let the appraiser tell you what it's worth, and then jack that price up some.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, next we got a couple questions from Rod in Oregon. This is Rod. Greetings. I have two questions. Question one, what do you say to the seller when the seller says he won't allow the debt pay down on a free and clear property because that is giving the tenant buyer free rent?
What in the world does that mean? First of all, if it's free and clear, there is no debt. I guess that means he won't let the buyer get credit for debt pay down.
Yeah, he says that the tenant buyer would be getting free rent, but
No, that means you did not explain this correctly. Okay, you're buying the house. The tenant buyer should have never even come out of your mouth. That's not something you discuss with the seller. You're buying the house, you're making the payment, you're getting the debt pay down. The tenant buyer is, I don't know where he even got that idea. It was something you said, I promise you that. The tenant buyer is going to be paying you rent. Where in the world would you get the idea that they're getting free rent? I don't know. I can't answer that because frankly, that question doesn't make any sense to me.
all right. Next question. If the ARV is 200,000 and I bump that to 209,
Yeah.
why would the bank finance the tenant buyer for 9,000 more than it's worth?
Okay, well, first of all, what difference does it make what the bank will do? You're lease optioning it to the tenant buyer. They're not going to the bank getting a loan on it. If they do, it'll be months and months and months off. And if they do, it will be worth the 209 by then. If it, in fact, it's worth the 209 today, if the buyer and the seller says it is. It's worth what a willing buyer is willing to pay. And if the bank gets a loan application on it for 209, they're going to tell the appraiser what that is. The appraiser is going to come in at probably 210, and that's assuming that they ever even go to the bank to get a loan, which they probably are not. In that price range, they rarely buy the property. So you know what? Quit worrying about stuff like that. It's totally irrelevant to your deal. And in reality, it's the buyer's problem anyway. It's not your problem. They have to come up with the money. That's what they agreed to pay for the price for the house.
All right. Dan, I don't know where Dan is from, but says, do the seller acknowledgements need to be signed when doing a lease option agreement with the seller,
Yes.
or is this signed later upon
No.
the sale?
I want it signed. I want you to get the agreement signed, the lease agreement signed, then I want your attorney to follow up and get anything else he wants signed, and that CYA is one of them.
Okay. Next question. I've heard people mention that the lease agreement and option agreement should be separated to avoid the tenant buyer winning a claim of ownership rights to the property.
When I'm selling, yes.
However, in the work for equity lease option agreement, the lease agreement and option agreement seem to be put together under the same agreement because the option agreement is an exhibit of the lease agreement.
I don't know. I'd have to go research that. Do you know? I don't think so.
Yeah, I'd have to
I don't
look.
think so.
I think our lease option agreement used to be all in one, and then we separated it later. Maybe
No,
we.
It's all on one when I'm buying, but not when I'm selling. And if that is the case, just take it out that it's not an exhibit. You just attach it as a separate agreement. I think he's saying that it refers to see exhibit in the lease agreement. If that's the case, just remove that. But I don't remember that being the case.
Okay. And his last question said, I would like to create a multi-member LLC for future asset protection. I understand that a single-member LLC could be attacked and assets taken
Correct.
in certain states where there is no charging order protection.
Correct.
Who would you recommend to be a second member in my LLC, and what is the recommended percentage ownership interest for myself versus the other member?
Well, it just so happens that we had Bob Bloom, an attorney from Texas, on here yesterday, and he went through all of that. And the answer is, if you have, of course, sounds like you don't have a spouse, sounds like you don't have a child, so you can be a member, and one of your LLCs can be another member, and that's two totally different members. The LLC that is the other member, remember, is going to get taxed on any net income. So if it's an LLC and it's yours, it's going to flow through to you anyway. So that doesn't really make any difference in this case. And I say that because if you're sticking one of your children in there as a member, remember your children's going to be paying their prorated share of taxes. In that case, I'd always recommend maybe 0.5%, so it's not a big deal. But as long as you have another entity in there, and yes, it can be your entity, and you in there, it's not a single member LLC. Now, what he suggested was that you have a family limited partnership on the LLC. And I know you're saying I don't have a family. Well, yes, you do, okay? Your LLC is the general partner. You are the limited partner. Now you have a family limited partnership. And that is the way he and I both suggest that you own the LLC, especially if you're not married and not in tenants by the entirety state.
Okay. Next question is from Terry in California. Terry says, Ron, I'm a 69-year-old newbie and just signed up for your Gold Club at the 697 level, and I added another 25 hours to that. I live in LA County in California. I've watched hours of videos and the Wolves. I couldn't find any training on how to do the pretty house business and acts virtually. How can I go about doing that?
Well, first of all, if you're 69, it's probably too late. You're probably too old to do anything. Just kidding. All right. I got you by 5 years. All right. The answer is you need to get my terms course if you don't have it, but more importantly, you ought to get to this boot camp that we're conducting right here, right now as we're filming this, called the Quick Start Real Estate School. We will do the next one in February, so look up those dates. And when you do that, the terms course comes with it, as well as the Ugly House courses. Or you can get the terms course separately for $897, and it's all about the pretty house business. In fact, that's all it's about. So that's where you start. And if you live in Southern California, I've got thousands of students there, thousands of them, thousands of students all over California. Probably half of them probably moved by now, but as far as I know, I still got a lot of students in California. So I think that answered that question, didn't it? Either the terms course or the boot camp, or preferably the boot camp.
Okay.
In fact, in February, who knows, we might be doing it live again. I'm going to shoot for March if not February.
Right. And you had mentioned before that he's asking about doing it virtually, so.
Oh, good point. Okay, we always have been doing it virtually. I've been doing it virtually for years. I just didn't think about it that way because everything we do is online with the exception of visiting the house. Okay, but the truth is nobody cares about you visiting the house. I've never had a seller refuse me to visit the house this whole year. I haven't even talked to a student that has. But if that were the case, I just have him video the inside of the house and send the videos to me and go from there. And I have students doing that virtually all over the country. Live here, do houses there. You can live in LA and do houses in Vegas or Florida, wherever you want, by just getting the seller to video it. And I do want to follow that up with somebody needs to go see the house, boots on the ground. I have getting people on Craigslist to do that. They go to gigs, and they hire somebody for few dollars to go take a look at the house and video it for them. So that will help. And you can also probably get a realtor to perform the same function for you for some small fee. And that's no big deal. Just pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them if they'll do it. And you don't even need to do any of that. Well, I want to see the inside of the house before I put it under contract, but you got to put it under contract first. Then you do all of that due diligence homework stuff. Worst case, you back out of the contract, you find stuff that you don't like, and forfeit your $10 or $100 or whatever it is.
All right, DJ from Texas says, Ron, do you know anyone in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who is not fearful or uncomfortable doing the title work on wraps or all-inclusive?
Are you asking me if I know an attorney? Fortunately for you, I just happen to have an attorney in Dallas. His name is Scott Horn. Write that down, all of you folks listening in Texas, anywhere in Texas. Scott Horn, very familiar with doing wraps. Probably does them more than all the other Texas attorneys combined. Scott Horn, and don't ask me for his phone number. There's this thing called Google, look him up. All right. In fact, I just talked to him a few weeks ago. In fact, I did it. Didn't we do a podcast with him?
Debbie could tell us that.
We did?
Not yet.
Well, we need to, Debbie. Put him on the list. Scott Horn, Dallas.
All right, and I believe his contact information is also on our Gold Club website now.
Is it?
Yep.
Where?
With the other attorneys that we have.
Oh yeah,
with.
there's 6 or 7 attorneys that I trained on the Gold Club site, and I haven't trained him. He could train me, He's been doing this for a long time. Plus, he's a real estate investor, not just an attorney.
All right, another question from DJ is the process or the type of insurance you get different if you have a land trust?
No,
Okay, also if you own properties in your name and transfer them to a land trust, does your existing insurance get affected in Texas?
no, no. And in fact, if you're using our insurance company for non-owner occupied, that's REI Guard. I need our insurance company, but that's the one I use. REI Guard. They insure all over the country, non-owner occupied only. Rates are low, and they could care less how you own the property. Now, if you're not using them, when I put insurance on the property, I just insure. If it's in a land trust, I just insure. I'm not sure how I'm doing it. I'm either insuring the entity that owns the land trust, or I'm insuring me. I don't remember which, to tell you the truth, but this is a question you should ask your insurance company, and that way you get it right. Now, if you're doing it in REI Guard, doesn't matter. They care. But if you're doing it in Allstate or something, you better ask them, how do you write this up? And by the way, it might cost you more if you insure it in a company name. So make sure that doesn't happen and you don't even realize it's happening.
Okay, Fernando, I have a seller that owes $90,000. The monthly PITI is $700. Wants $7,000 to move and needs repairs of $50.
God. Okay. What's the ARV?
ARV is $200. So the potential profit is $53,000.
No. What did you just say? Smack you. Okay. You better get to this boot camp, man, because you're forgetting about all those other costs in the middle. That's what we're going to cover this afternoon, actually. In no way that's a potential profit. That happens to be the spread. You watch that profit go like that by the time you get this thing sold. Now, I doubt it needs $50,000, to be honest with you. I just doubt that it needs that much. That is one hell of a mess of a house if it needs $50,000. It's also, you better get here and learn what it really costs to do this stuff. But it sounds like you got a deal there, but I'd like to get more clarity on the numbers. You didn't even tell me how big the house was. So you got to get that repair cost down, and you might want to try to get that price down. And then worst case, put it under contract for what the guy's asking and wholesale it, which is exactly what you probably should do anyway. We're in such a rabid market right now. I mean, there are so many greater fools out there buying these junkers right now. It's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, the best market I ever seen for wholesaling houses. So put it under contract, raise the price on it $25,000, put it on Craigslist, and it's gone. Mark my words.
He was thinking about doing he thinks it can rent to a tenant buyer for $1,700, probably fixed up.
No, not if it needs that much work, man.
He was thinking of doing a work for equity.
No, that's too much work for equity. Flip it, get your check, and forget about it. Okay, go on to the next one. Put check in bank. Take wife on no, not a cruise right now, but something cool. All right.
All right, that's all the questions for this week.
Okay, all right, guys. See you next week. Hey, want to give them the dates of the summit coming up?
Yeah, I had it wrong earlier. It's this January 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Okay, put those dates on your calendar. We got another free summit coming up, and we're gonna have some really cool people on that summit. We're trying to pick the best of the best. For one thing, I'm gonna have a guy on there that did, now listen to this, 800 wholesale deals a year, this year. 800, not 80, not 8, 800. I know that's hard to believe, but we're gonna find out how he did it. All right, see you next week.